What's up, guys? Welcome back to another UFC prediction video. This week we got UFC 325, Volk versus Lopes 2. Now, Lopes may or may not deserve the title shot. That's a different discussion, but decent card overall taking place in Australia, Volk's backyard. And without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and get right into the full card predictions. And yeah, look, like Aaron Tao, I know him. He fought on the Contender Series. All these first fights are road to the UFC fights. And let's just be real, that comes on at like 2 and 3 in the morning Eastern time. I'm not able to watch those. So I'm not going to be able to give you a breakdown on these first fights. But we'll go ahead and break down the rest of the card with the fighters who have fought in the UFC before. Yizha versus Ofli. Now, Yizha coming in off of a good win against Weston Wilson. He did take a loss before that. I forgot who he lost his debut to. It was like a decent opponent, however. He's not a bum. Yeah, he lost to Gabriel Santos, who is very, very good, who just took out a good prospect in Jung Sung Yu. So, Yizha, Asian fighter, good striker, finishing ability, dangerous. We saw that on the regional scene, possesses power. And, finishing ability predominantly with his striking. He is decently well-rounded. He has some grappling abilities. He has been submitted in the past before, so he may have some holes he needs to polish up there before he really, starts to make a run in the UFC. But I think he's a solid fighter here. Ofli, competed on The Ultimate Fighter, had 2 fights against Myron Santos and Muhammad Naimov in the UFC, where he just didn't do too good whatsoever. Ofli, he got knocked out by Myron Santos, and Myron Santos is a killer for sure, so that's not a terrible loss to take, but, got dominated by Muhammad Naimov, and just kind of wasn't able to get anything going in that fight. Trains out of City Kickboxing, decently technical on the feet, but has no power, no ability to hurt you whatsoever. He's kind of a better grappler for the most part, but has some submissions where, like I said, Yizha has shown in the past to be vulnerable to subs, so Ofli may be able to wrap up a submission here, but I don't think his actual wrestling and takedowns are good enough to get him there consistently enough to actually get that, before the second, third round, before he gets too tired, before they get all sweaty. It's hard to wrap up a submission. Give me Yizha to win a decision here in this fight. Next fight on the card, we have Jonathan Micallef versus Elliot. Jonathan Micallef had a good performance on the Australia card last year on the Dricus 2+C versus Sean Strickland card. Elliot, coming in off of a loss versus Hyung Sung Ko, who's a very good fighter, just kind of got out-grappled there. This is a stylistic matchup where both of these fighters are pretty similar. Both of them are pretty well-rounded for the most part. Neither guy really stands out too much over the other, but I really did like Jonathan Micallef's performance in his debut. And Elliot, the guys he was beating, lower levels of competition, Basil Hafez, not that great whatsoever. Preston Parsons, I don't even think he's in the UFC anymore. Not the highest level of competition he has had success over. And Jonathan Micallef, going to have a 5-inch reach advantage here. I knew he was going to be a little bit lankier. I think that's going to help him in terms of the volume with the hands. I think he can land more straight shots. Where Elliot, he's decent on the feet, but still kind of a little timid, a little bit low output at times. And, he looked good against Hafez on the feet. Looked to be putting some things together, but I think Jonathan Micallef is going to be able to beat him here. Hometown advantage. I think he's going to have a physicality advantage. I don't know if they're the same height. I actually feel like Jonathan Micallef is a little bit bigger in terms of his height as well as his reach. But I see both of these guys kind of on a level playing field in terms of their technicality and their skill sets. I think Jonathan Micallef is the better athlete. He's going to have hometown advantage here. Give me him to win this fight via decision. Next fight on the card, we have Jacob Malkoun versus Finney. Finney. How many times did he fight on the Contender Series? Like 2 or 3 times. Finally, he got a good ground and pound TKO victory, and Dana White finally signed him. And he made his UFC debut, and had possibly the most boring and lackluster fight in the promotion's history against Robert Valentin, where he literally didn't do anything except for just get a body lock and hold him up against the fence. Now, you may look at him and say, wow, he's a freak athlete, super explosive. And, he is explosive and strong, but not coordinated, not very agile, not very quick, especially with his striking. He's fast and explosive, just like right off the rip. But in terms of like putting together a nice combination or, head movement, anything like that, not very agile, not very quick with those types of skills. Cardio seems to be a little bit suspect as well. And I just don't think he's very good. I think Azamat Bikoev would have destroyed him. But Jacob Malkoun, he's been out for a very long time, been very inactive, hasn't fought since the beginning of 2024. Had that kind of fluke against Malkoun, beat Maximov, and, lost to Brendan Allen, beat Abdul Razak Al Hassan. He's a decently well-rounded fighter, decent grappling, okay striking. Well, I think his striking is probably going to be better than Torres Finney's here. Finney may be more powerful than Malkoun. Malkoun doesn't have a ton of pop. He's been out for a very long time. The athleticism is definitely going to have taken a large hit. Torres Finney, this is definitely a winnable fight for him. You know what? I'm going to take Torres Finney to win this fight. Malkoun's good. I think he's actually more technical. But, if Torres Finney can kind of just get one takedown early, win the first round, get some ground and pound, loses the second round, maybe third round, he lands a big right hand, has a big moment, or just kind of survives, maybe scrapes by a split decision. I'll pick Torres Finney to win this fight via split decision. I think we're going to have a lot of decisions on this card, at least early. But yeah, give me Torres Finney. Jacob Malkoun is better, but the time off, I don't like it. Hasn't really beat a great level of competition. The grappling's probably going to be kind of similar in this fight, at least the wrestling, in terms of who gets on top when they do get to the ground, who wins the scrambles. I think that's going to be close. But yeah, give me Finney to win a decision. Next fight on the card, Cam Rowston versus Cody Brundage. Cam Rowston lost to Torres Finney, I believe, on the Contender Series, just kept getting taken down. So that kind of solidifies my Finney pick. I will keep my Finney pick. But, Cam Rowston lost to Torres Finney on the Contender Series. It wasn't a, awful performance, just, like I said, got held down and kind of smudged. But after that fight, won 2 fights on the bounce on the regional scene by submission. So that shows me he's looking to improve his game. He's made fight-to-fight improvements in the grappling and trains out of City Kickboxing, good striker, classic City Kickboxing striking, rear hip feints the jab, good 1-2, good counter, left hook when you come in, when you're crashing in. And I'm pretty sure that's what he got his finish with against Andre Petroski in his debut. I think he got a left hook finish against Andre Petroski. And I think this fight's going to be very similar to the Petroski one. Cody Brundage brings similar things to the table as an Andre Petroski. Decent wrestling, okay cardio and output on the feet. But I think Cam Rowston, he'll defend the takedowns, and he's going to be much better on the feet. Nice front kicks, dig into the belly, good long rangy straight shots. And I'm going to say that Cam Rowston gets a second round TKO finish against Cody Brundage. So yeah, give me Cam Rowston, second round TKO. I'll say it's another left hook from Cam Rowston as Cody Brundage overextends. Next fight on the card, Junior Tafa versus Billy Elekana. Look, Junior Tafa, absolutely dog shit. I think the Tafa brothers are jokes. I mean, when was the last time this dude even competed? Against Tuco Tokos, and he lost that fight against fucking Tokos. Sean Sheriff, on like 2 days' notice. And that was like a fight where they were kind of going tit for tat. Lost to Walker, lost to DeLima, got embarrassed, lost to Usman. Like, this dude is not good whatsoever. Junior Tafa is ass. He has zero grappling at all. And I think that Billy Elekana is going to go out there and sub him in the first round pretty easily. Like, Junior Tafa, zero athleticism, zero grappling. He has, like, C-tier low kicks and, like, some power in his hands, if you want to call that kickboxing. But he's just not a good fighter whatsoever. Doesn't take it seriously, rarely competes. Out of shape in the offseason. Look, Billy Elekana, He's a gamer, came in on short notice and lost a fight to Bogdan Guskov, where, that's not a bad look whatsoever looking back on it, because Guskov has had big time success in the light heavyweight division and even went to a draw with Jan Blachowicz. So not a bad loss to take whatsoever. And like I said, on short notice, and he won the first round of that fight, and he won it with grappling. So I think he's going to easily be able to take down Fat Man Tafa and just dispose of him with ground and pound or a submission. I didn't hate the win against Ibo Aslan, where that was kind of a slow-paced fight, but he did display decent technical ability, and he, kind of made the fight where he needed it to win against Aslan, who does do good in like a brawl, who's a powerful, power puncher, a slugger. Billy Elekana, maybe he can't match him for punch power in that matchup, so he kept it calm, composed, beat him tit for tat. And then, the performance that he just had against Kevin Christian, I think Kevin Christian's ass, and I was talking major shit before that fight, but Kevin Christian, he really came looking way better than he ever did in that fight, and he was landing some nasty, nasty kicks, and Kevin Christian's like 6'8". He could easily be a heavyweight. And he was landing some nasty kicks on Billy Elekana, minced up his leg badly. But Billy Elekana, stayed dialed, toughed it out, and eventually he landed a very nice counter right hook and knocked out Kevin Christian. So Billy Elekana, tough, good cardio. He has grappling and pretty opportunistic in terms of finishing a fight, even when, things aren't necessarily going his way. Give me Billy Elekana to easily beat Junior Tafa. That's the lock of the card. I have a bet on him myself, but I do not see a world where Billy Elekana loses to Junior Tafa. So yeah, give me Elekana here via first round sub. On to the main card, we got Quillen Salkilld versus Jamie Mullarkey. Look, short notice replacement. Quillen was supposed to fight Rong Zhu. This is a horrible decision for Jamie Mullarkey. I don't know why he's stepping in on this card. I don't think he even had a fight on this card. I know he's been training with Volk and Ruffy. I guess he thought he felt ready or whatnot, but Quillen Salkilld is going to starch him in the first round easily with a right hand. Quillen been pretty impressive. Beat Gage Young on the Contender Series via decision. Displayed a well-rounded skill set there. Good decision making, clinch work, decent striking output, good ground game. Came into the UFC, easily disposed of Anshul Jubilee with a quick right hand, easily knocked him out cold. I think that was on the Drickus and Strickland card. And then he fought Yanal Ajmus. Had a shaky third round where he did gas out a little bit, lost the third round to Yanal, who's a decent fighter, and, got tagged up a little bit in that third round versus Yanal, like I said. But the first two rounds, he was using the jab perfectly, out-grappling Yanal Ajmus. And, his grappling is very, very good. Takes the back well, good jiu-jitsu, threatens submissions. And, look, Jamie Mullarkey, he beat Bedoya last time out, but Bedoya is kind of a bum. And, nowhere near the power of Salkilld, nowhere near the jiu-jitsu and the takedown threat, grappling threat overall of Salkilld. Salkilld is going to kill him, easily in the first round. Simple as that. The nasty, nasty head kick he landed against Hack Prass was a great look. You're talking about an absolute fight finisher, young stud, tough as nails. He ate some good shots from Yanal with a grappling upside, a power upside, a physicality upside. It's a guaranteed win for Quillen Salkilld. So yeah, unfortunately for Jamie Mullarkey, he's getting knocked out in the first round. This is a card where I feel very confident about some predictions. Billy Elekana, feel very good about that. I don't think we have odds on Quillen yet for Jamie Mullarkey. I'd imagine he's like a minus 800. Billy Elekana is like minus 225 now. I bet him at minus 180. I'm pretty confident Talashin Teixeira is going to easily dispose of Tai Tuivasa's fat taco belly and ass too. Look, Tai Tuivasa, long-ass loss streak, you can't even remember it. It's been so long. Volkov, Pavlovich, who else beat him? Gone. Lost to Jairzinho Rosenstrike. Lost to Marcin Tybura. So, look, he's just ass at this point. He's a fat pig. Like, he literally just blobs around the cage, tries to swing it overhand. If that doesn't work, then he loses. At like nowadays, 6, 7 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, he had some decent elbows, decent low kicks, and he obviously did have his power. And, he was a brawler, good chin, tough as nails. But look, at the end of the day, heavyweight is progressing a little bit, thankfully, and that's not going to get you far. He's taken those losses. He's been out of the cage for a long, long time. Got schooled versus Rosenstrike. Tell me how he has success in this fight. Is he going to land a, fluke left hook like Derek Lewis did against Teixeira? No, I don't think that's going to happen. This dude hasn't done anything at all in terms of training or competing for the last, however many years it's been. Been out for a long time. Doesn't take his career seriously. Teixeira, look, getting knocked out by the guy who has the most knockouts in UFC history, and it was an early stoppage. I mean, so be it. The dude's talented. He has nasty KO ability, good fight finisher, good Muay Thai for a heavyweight. He can kick. He has elbows. He has knees. Like I said, the range advantage is going to be crazy. 5-inch height advantage, almost a 10-inch reach advantage. I think that Teixeira is like the safest pick of the decade, along with fucking, Billy Elekana. I think these, fat Australians who don't take their career seriously, I think it's a free win for their opponent. So yeah, give me Teixeira here. I will definitely be betting Teixeira against Tuivasa. I'll take him to win by TKO. I'll take a money line. I think he's going to, finish Tuivasa with a body kick in the first round. So yeah, give me Teixeira easily. Excellent fight here. Love this fight. Now, does Mauricio Ruffy deserve this matchup? Not at all. But it's going to be a fun fight to watch regardless. But I think that Fiziev is probably going to fuck him up. Look, Mauricio Ruffy, naturally talented for sure. Shot finding ability is definitely there. And he does fight a lot like Brazilian Conor McGregor. Emulates that style a lot. Very, very, free flowy, very balanced. And, his creativity is really what stands out to me. Doesn't throw a lot of basic techniques. Lots of, wheel kicks, jumping attacks, spinning attacks. And even with his boxing, with his punching, he throws a really strange, rear uppercut, scooping uppercut. And whenever he's trying to land shots on the feet, he's really strange, looping counter shots like he had against Lontop with that look away left hook. His striking style is very strange. And, he's able to hit weird trips, like against Jamie Mullarkey with that scissor sweep. But this dude has not fought anybody nearly as good as Rafael Fiziev. And I think Rafael Fiziev is going to beat his ass, like I said. Look, made his debut against Mullarkey. Mullarkey is just not good whatsoever, and he's chinny as hell. And when you rewatch that fight, it's impressive, but excuse me, my throat's getting fucking sore. That was an impressive performance, make no mistake. But Jamie Mullarkey was having some moments in that fight. Ruffy's low output, for real. He does not throw a lot of output, and he can easily get behind on the numbers now that he's taking steps up in competition. We even saw Benoit Saint Denis, landing some really good kicks on him. And I think that's going to be a huge factor for Fiziev against Mauricio Ruffy, is that left kick. And like I said, he has really strange, punching styles and, punching shot selection. He's never just double jab right hand, 2-3-2, 1-2. It's always a very, very strange attack with Mauricio Ruffy, and his head movement, his defense. He loves that Philly shell. He loves the Canelo look away. Nothing's fundamental with Mauricio Ruffy, and I think that's going to hurt him here in this matchup with Fiziev. Now, he had his win versus Mullarkey. He had his win versus Lontop. He looked good in those fights. Did, lose a round to James Lontop, though, which is a terrible look. And was getting touched up a little bit, was getting kicked from James Lontop. And make no mistake, he had a good performance there, but he got tired in that fight. and, just had some moments of adversity, even though it was a good performance. And then, loses to Benoit Saint Denis in embarrassing fashion, just got absolutely kicked to smithereens and then ragdolled and choked out. Easily, that fight wasn't even competitive whatsoever. Benoit Saint Denis looked minus 1,000 in that fight. And look, Rafael Fiziev, been in the UFC a while, good KO win over Renato Moicano, had that nasty spinning heel kick against Brad Riddell, which is an underrated win. And, recently he had a unfortunate streak where he lost to Justin, blew out his knee, and then he lost to Justin again. Excuse me. But this dude is still a killer, and he's still like top 10 lightweight in the world material. And he proved that in his last fight versus Ignacio Bahamondes. And if you really want to, be honest with Fiziev's record in the UFC, except for his UFC debut where he got spinning heel kicked, but that was ages ago. So if you want to look past the debut, which was just kind of a fluke knockout, if you will. If you look past the debut, which was kind of a fluke knockout, and if you look past where he blew out his ACL, which was a complete fluke versus Gamrot, he's only ever lost to Justin Gaethje, who is one of the best lightweights to ever be in the UFC. So that's not a bad loss to take whatsoever. And I'm recording this before Paddy Pimblett versus Justin Gaethje. The card is starting in a couple hours, but I'm going ahead and recording this. I don't even know the result yet of Justin Gaethje versus Paddy Pimblett, but if Justin Gaethje beats Paddy Pimblett, that's going to be, a very good look for Fiziev, because he's only ever going to have lost to the interim champ. Look, Fiziev, he showed it in his last fight versus Ignacio Bahamondes. He's even been improving with the takedown threat, and he can get double leg takedowns. I think he's going to use that against Mauricio Ruffy here. And look, like I said, Mauricio Ruffy, nothing's fundamental. And it's going to take just a one-punch KO shot here to beat Fiziev, in my opinion. I don't think he's going to beat him on the cards. Now, maybe he gets a few knockdowns and beats him in a fashion kind of like Justin did in the first fight, but I don't really see that happening. I think that Fiziev is going to absolutely fuck him up with kicks bad. Mauricio Ruffy does not know how to defend kicks. He doesn't know how to check kicks. He'll try to dodge it. He'll try to get out of the way, but he does not know how to check kicks. He's not very good at blocking them with his arms, and he just takes the full force of them. Fiziev is one of the best kickers in the entire UFC. He is going to absolutely mince up the lead leg of Mauricio Ruffy when he's in that wide Conor McGregor karate stance. Fiziev is just going to chop that shit down with the right calf kick and the right leg kick. And Mauricio Ruffy as well, very susceptible to the left kick. He's very susceptible to switch kicks. Benoit Saint Denis showed that, and James Lontop even showed it a little bit. Rafael Fiziev has one of the best switch kicks in the game. He's going to switch kick the fuck out of Mauricio Ruffy. And I'm going to pick Rafael Fiziev to get a second round liver kick TKO. A switch kick, liver kick TKO, baby, for Rafael Fiziev. And even in terms of the hands, dude, I think that Rafael Fiziev is going to be much more, explosive. Much more explosive. Now, Ruffy is good at, picking a shot, kind of catching you off guard. And counters, he's very, very good at his counters, pull counters especially. But Fiziev, he's nicer in the pocket. He's got better pocket boxing, body head, kind of like how he knocked out Moicano. He has good switch stance combinations as well, like when he knocked out Rafael dos Anjos. He's been tested more, he's fought way more ranked competition, like I said, RDA, Moicano, Justin Gaethje, Gamrot, Ignacio Bahamondes. He's fought so many ranked opponents, and he has so much more experience. I think that Rafael Fiziev is going to, destroy Mauricio Ruffy. And like I said, the kicking game's not even going to be close. Fiziev's going to be piecing him up with the kicks. I think his pocket boxing is going to be nicer with his combinations. Mauricio Ruffy doesn't really throw in combination that much, kind of just as a one-shotter. Fiziev, nicer combinations with the hands. And also, something that could work for Fiziev, he has nice elbows. He could use that against Ruffy. Ruffy's not a guy that tends to implement or acknowledge the elbow weaponry too often. And also, knees in the clinch. Fiziev can fuck him up with knees in the clinch And like I said, the takedown threat's going to be there for Fiziev. Somehow, this has gotten down to a pick'em. I bet Fiziev at minus 150. I think there's value at minus 150 for sure. I cap Fiziev at like a minus 225, a minus, 210 in this fight. I think you should be just over a 2-1 favorite. Just because, like I said, I mean, what element of MMA is Ruffy better at? I mean, he may have better cardio and he's going to have a size advantage here. But other than that, he doesn't hold an advantage. And, the long straight shots are definitely going to be an issue for Fiziev, who doesn't have great head movement, but he does have a hell of a chin. 8 nasty shots off of Justin, took him like a champ. 8 nasty shots off of Brad Riddell, took him like a champ. And, like I said, I think he's going to kind of have a similar performance to the Ignacio Bahamondes fight, where he dealt with the height and the reach of Bahamondes just fine in that one. So, yeah, give me Fiziev to win this fight. Love the matchup. I think it's going to be a very entertaining first round in terms of the striking exchanges. But after that, Fiziev, he's just going to work in a full-scale game plan on Mauricio Ruffy, who's kind of one-dimensional and kind of just focuses too much on flair rather than fundamentals. So, yeah, give me Fiziev. Second round at liver kick TKO. Co-main event of the evening, we got Dan Hooker versus Benoit Saint-Denis. Awesome fight here. Dan Hooker, OG of the game, coming off that loss to Arman Tsarukyan. Before that, he had a long layoff before that, right? Yeah, had the Gamrot fight. I like these two performances back-to-back for Hooker going into the BSD fight. Gamrot, Arman Tsarukyan. Both of those guys are going to give you very similar looks and very similar things to worry about as a Benoit Saint-Denis in terms of, takedowns, heavy on the single leg takedowns, both of them, especially Arman. That tends to be what Benoit goes for. He'll go for the body lock against the fence as well. But Dan Hooker, he has the guillotine that he can go for. He pulled that a lot against Gamrot. He had more success against Gamrot with it than he did against Arman. Arman beautifully escaped that submission hold. But, Dan Hooker, he can, pull the ghillie to try to defend some of the takedowns from Benoit Saint-Denis. But we saw Poirier try to do that, and that didn't work out for him. So I don't think Benoit's getting guillotined by Dan Hooker. But Dan Hooker has decent takedown defense, and if this fight does take place on the feet, it can look interesting for sure because Benoit is still sloppy on the feet. He has a nice left kick, a very, very good left kick, but the hands aren't great, footwork's not great, defense isn't great. Clinch work is solid, he has good elbows, good knees, but Dan Hooker in terms of the, counter shots, being able to find shots with his hands, and, the kicking game, like the front kicks up the middle, the calf kicks are very good for Dan Hooker. And Dan Hooker's also just a dog. Tough as nails. Both of these guys always, bring a war. They always come to fight. Both of them have chins of iron. So I think we see this fight go to a decision unless it's a Benoit Saint-Denis submission. Just purely based off the fact that these guys are so tough. But I think this is going to be a bloody back and forth war, fight of the night type of fight where Dan Hooker, maybe lands a nasty, nasty knee up the middle, which is kind of his, that's his trademark move, that knee up the middle, that long right knee. I think he could land that big, long right knee up the middle, hurt Benoit early, but Benoit, survives the first round. He's eating hooks up against the fence, but he toughs it out. He gets a takedown in the second round, rains down ground and pound. Hooker survives. Benoit, pulls the ghillie, tries to get it. Hooker gets out of it. He continues to fight, tries to get the takedowns. He's on the hips. Dan Hooker's elbowing him in the back of the head. Benoit breaks. They continue to scrap. And I think it's going to be a fight like that, just pure chaos for 3 rounds. How many underdogs have I picked on this card? That's a pick 'em. I picked a favorite. I picked a dog there. You know what? Give me Dan Hooker. No, I'm going to pick Benoit Saint-Denis because Arman was low-key tagging up Dan Hooker on the feet. This is a close fight. I don't think that minus, 250 or whatever Benoit is warranted whatsoever. Like, I think Benoit should be like a minus 140, maybe like a minus 175 if I'm being generous, if he can, grapple clean. But I think Benoit St. Denis is going to win a split decision here where he's really hurt. It's going to be a war, but give me the God of War to win a very close fight here against Dan Hooker. All right, we move on to the main event of the evening. We have Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopes 2 for the featherweight title. Now, of course, we know what happened last time. It's kind of the same narrative. Nothing much has changed. Alexander Volkanovski came back from 2 knockout losses in a row at the age of 36, with the 35 curse looming large. At the age of 36, taking on a young, hungry knockout artist and, dangerous fighter, Diego Lopes. Everybody was counting out Alexander Volkanovski. Everybody was counting out Alexander Volkanovski, who is literally a top 5 fighter of all time, who has only ever lost to literally other top 5 fighters of all time in Islam Makhachev and Elliot. So, in terms of the level of competition, beaten and lost to, it's not even a playing field in terms of the resumes. Like, it's not even a competition. There's no point of even reading the resumes of both of these guys. I mean, Alexander the Great Volkanovski, Alexander the Volk Greatanovsky. Alexander the Great Volkanovski, the best featherweight of all time. 3 wins over Max Holloway, win over Aldo, win over Chad Mendez, win over TKZ. Yair, Diego Lopes. I mean, he's the fucking go to featherweight. Only ever lost to, Ilya at featherweight. Lost twice to Makhachev. One was, he was fat as fuck off the couch. Completely no way he was ever going to win that fight. And like I said, when he came in last April to fight Lopes, everybody was counting him out. Lopes was coming in off of a good performance against Ortega. Tons and tons of hype. Everybody loves Lopes, but, let's just be real. This dude, I mean, I just don't even really rate him that much, and I think it's a fucking piece of shit fucking decision that he's even fighting a top 5 GOAT again after literally just fluking a spinning elbow against Silva in a fight where he was going to lose if he didn't get that spinning elbow. But, I mean, this dude, I really just don't fucking rate him that highly. Lost to Movsar Evloev, where he got, 30-27, completely dominated by Movsar Evloev. Completely dominated by Movsar, who is the rightful number 1 contender in this division. If you don't want to give it to Movsar, you should give it to Lerone Murphy. But literally, Lopes is fighting Volk when Evloev has a win over Lopes, and Evloev is undefeated, and Evloev isn't fighting Volk. Oh, keep in mind, Lopes also lost to Joe Anderson Brito, who is like ass. Lopes lost him on the Contender Series before he lost to Movsar. And he lost to Volk. So that's 3 losses under the UFC banner. Movsar and Lerone Murphy are both undefeated under the UFC banner. But whatever, they're going to do whatever the fuck they want to do. They just want to hope and pray that Lopes KOs Volk. That's what they want. Even though Lopes doesn't fucking deserve that shit. Okay, look. Good submission over Tucker. Yusuf is chinny as fuck, got that uppercut. The win against Pat Sabatini, low-key, is aging like fine wine. But, he just kind of used his physicality to, land that uppercut there. Not a good performance against Ige, but he won the fight. The ghost of whatever Brian Ortega is doing nowadays. He beat him. And, look, Lopes, let's just talk about the stylistic matchup instead of me hating on Lopes, because I'm not a fan of Diego Lopes whatsoever. Not a fan of Diego Lopes. I mean, look, I don't hate the guy, but I just don't like the favoritism that he's getting. I don't like the fact that he's getting this fight. But besides the point, let's talk stylistically. He has a good right calf kick, good hooks and uppercuts in the pocket. Not a lot of head movement, not a lot of slickness on the feet, not a lot of layers to his game. He has hooks and uppercuts. He's got, a head kick he'll throw every now and then and a calf kick. Very, very limited skill set on the feet. he has good jiu-jitsu. He has very good submissions, but he doesn't have great takedowns. He is not taking down Volkanovski. That's just not happening. Look at the smirk on his face, dude. Get that fucking smirk off your face, bro. You ain't doing shit to Volk. You ain't doing shit to Volk. He's schooling you like he did last time. But look, that's kind of all he brings to the table. That's all he brings to the table. And, I think Lerone Murphy would beat him. I think that Movzar would beat him. I think that Arnold Allen would beat him. I thought that John Silva was going to beat him. Let's talk about the John Silva fight. They were going tit for tat. John Silva, throws a very shitty spinning back kick because, John Silva, he has a lot of things, but fight IQ is not one of them. And Diego Lopes opportunistically took the back, and he was able to mount him, get some elbows off, and that was the extent of the success that he had in that fight. People really overrate that performance against John Silva because, like I said, John Silva threw the spinning back kick. Volk isn't doing anything that stupid. He's never going to give his back to Lopes. Volk isn't giving his back to Lopes. That's just not going to happen. Diego Lopes takes John Silva's back. He lands some nasty ground and pound. But then John Silva gets up, and by the time John Silva gets up to the time the fight ends, it's John Silva putting belt to ass. Like, it's him 1-2, 1-2, body kick, 1-2. Like, John Silva's just beating the pulp out of Diego Lopes. Diego Lopes is sitting there playing with his throat, not moving his head at all, just getting tagged and pushed up against the fence. And it looks like John Silva's about to, really start wailing on him and look to find a finish. And then Diego Lopes, opportunistically, because he is a very opportunistic fighter, lands the spinning elbow TKO. Now, Diego Lopes, in my opinion, he's always been the absolute definition of a moments fighter. He is a opportunistic moments fight finisher type of guy. He's not a good minute-to-minute fighter. His skill sets are not that great. And Volk's, one of the best fighters to ever fucking do it. The only thing that Volk doesn't really have is a great submission arsenal. But other than that, he's fucking flawless almost in every part of the game. His hand output, excellent jab, beautiful combinations, super, super slick. The angles that he cuts are just, gorgeous, excellent counter striking. His footwork is one of the most underrated aspects of his game. His footwork is one of the best in MMA history. His ability to move laterally and, just be defensively sound while throwing on the move is just, not appreciated enough. And it's something that a person who doesn't fight, someone who doesn't know MMA super well, wouldn't even really be able to identify. But, Alexander Volkanovski, his footwork is so nuanced. He's so good with it. Kicking game's on point. Very good low kicks. Beat Max Holloway using them. Body kicks are there. Really nice switch kicks, head kicks, all three levels. He can dig front kicks to the body. You name it, Volkanovski can do it. He's got great takedowns. We saw Volkanovski get that beautiful inside trip against the cage against Lopes last time out. And look, at the end of the day, nothing has changed since these two have last fought. I said my piece about the John Silva fight, but Volkanovski coming right back into a fight against the guy he, beat 49-46 last time. But let's just be real. That fight was a little bit sus. And I fucking hate the fact that it's possible for Volk to get KO'd here, but it's very, very possible. And I'm a big Volk fan for sure. Like, I'm biased in this fight for sure. Like, I'm completely biased towards Volkanovski and I want him to win. But Diego Lopes scared the shit out of me last time out. I had a grand on Volk at -130 to beat Lopes. And in that second round, I literally about shit in my pants when he got dropped. Because, it was looking bad. It was like the exact same fashion of him backing up against the fence. And Diego Lopes comes over the top hard with that right hand. And even in the fourth round, that uppercut hurt Volk's eye really badly. Volk starts bleeding out of his eye, and Diego Lopes starts marching him down. And Volkanovski, in that fight with Lopes, it's like he did a very good job at using his footwork, fighting evasively, but I expected him to be able to dictate the center of the cage a little bit better just because of the discrepancy in the striking acumen and skills. Like, I thought he would just be able to completely, out tit for tat him, take him down at will, and kind of maintain dominant position in the cage the majority of the fight, but that was not the case. He wasn't really able to get big time respect against Lopes, even after landing that big 1-2-3 in the first round and, landing the takedown. He was only able to land the one takedown, which was a concern for me. I wanted to see more takedowns from Volk, but he wasn't able to get takedowns because he wasn't able to push Diego Lopes back at all with his power. Like I said, even though he got respect with that big 1-2-3 where he hurt him, he was on the back foot the whole time, where he can operate perfectly off the back foot. I mean, we saw him versus Max Holloway 3. But against Lopes, this is a fighter that I think you're going to want to, I mean, he was countering and throwing in combination very well, but you want to be doing it, pushing him up against the fence so that you can get your own takedowns, because Volkanovski, one of the best attributes of his game is his wrestling and his ground and pound, and Diego Lopes doesn't have good takedown defense. We saw Movsar take him down easily. We saw Brito take him down easily. And, no need to even worry about submissions. I mean, Lopes would never sub Volk a day in his life. But you have to worry about the big power threat, because Volkanovski, my whole point about the cage control and everything like that, with him using his counters and combinations to push Lopes back and make him not believe in himself, it prevents Volk from being against the cage and possibly getting, that right hand landed on him. But also, it was the manner in which Volk was crashing into the pocket that I did not like. He kept crashing into the pocket, and he would start his combinations with body shots, and I'm like, oh, that is scary as fuck, because that's just asking for a big time counter from a guy that loves uppercuts and hooks like Diego Lopes. And he would be crashing in big time and kind of ducking his head, and it would just worry me a little bit. I'd like the entries to be a little bit cleaner in this fight from Volkanovski, and if he can, just have cleaner entries and just avoid, the big right hand while he's, moving to his left against the fence. When he's moving to the right, which he's very, very good at, like I said, the footwork, not a lot of people notice it, but for an orthodox fighter to be able to move to the right as effectively as Volkanovski while throwing is just insanely talented. It takes such a high level of footwork, and he needs to continue with that right-sided footwork, because when he moves to the left, we saw it against Tuporia, we saw it against Yair when he landed that big shot, and we saw it against Lopes when he hurt him both times. It was when he was circling to the left, not to the right. So he needs to avoid circling to the left at all costs. He's got to clean up those entries when it's the center of the cage. I like more takedowns, the knees to the body and the clinch. If he's going to be crashing into the pocket like that, it needs to be with elbows, high guard with elbows, follow that up with knees in the clinch. But I'm going to pick Alexander Volkanovski again, but I'm scared for him because, Diego Lopes, he hurt him last time out. He's always live for a finish with his hands, and Volkanovski's chinny at this point in his career, and even in that last fight, he looked older and slower and less reactive than he ever has. And he still looked good. He's still a goated fighter, and he still won the fight. But you can tell physically Volk isn't the same as he used to be. And, the reaction time, the evasiveness, even if it's 5-10% slower, that 5-10% can cost you here against Diego Lopes. I'm going to pick Volk by decision. Again, I picked him by TKO in the first fight where I thought he'd be able to get ground and pound off. I don't think he's going to have wrestling success. I hope he does, but I don't think he will. I think he's going to have to basically exactly replicate what he did last time. Kickbox on the outside, stay safe. He can, and I think that's what he's going to do. I think he's going to win 49-46 again. I think it's going to be the exact same outcome as the first fight. I hope so. Please, God, don't let Diego Lopes fluke the GOAT. Please. But I'm going to pick Volkanovski by decision. I'll probably put one unit on Volk by decision depending on what the odds are. I'd like that at maybe plus 175 or something like that. I think that's the most likely outcome of this fight. But, other than that, I probably won't bet Volk on the money line. I bet him at minus 130 last time. I think it'll probably get back down to that number in terms of the betting odds. I won't be surprised if it gets back down to minus 130. I don't want to lay minus 175. Minus 160, I don't hate, but like, I need it minus 135 or lower on Volk, or else I'm not going to bet that for a lot. Because, when it's $1,000 bet, I care a lot about what the odds are. If I'm going to put 100 on it, maybe come fight time, I don't really care, and I'll just put 100 on Volk, even if he's minus 170. But I would be hesitant, and I am hesitant to bet Volk in this fight. Last time I was all over him. I was certain he was going to win, but this time out, I'm not certain he's going to win. Because let's just be 100% honest, technical breakdown and, cross-referencing, performances, skill sets, everything like that to the side. Life is cruel. MMA is cruel. How many times have we seen a fan favorite goated fighter go out on top in their hometown? Is it really going to be that good? MMA's too cruel. MMA's too cruel for Volkanovski to beat Lopes again in a fight where he never should have had to take in his hometown and retire on top. That's too good of a story. This reeks of an early stoppage for Lopes. It reeks of an early stoppage for Lopes. But I'm picking Volk by decision. I won't even manifest a Lopes win here. So yeah, give me Volk by decision. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I know I ranted a little bit there, but hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, leave a comment if you agree or disagree with any of my picks. Enjoy the card this weekend. Have a great day.